I do not envy you the headache you will have when you awake, but for now, rest well and dream of large women. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. May I live 1,000 years and never hunt again. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die. I'm so sorry. I could go on forever. This week, Rob and I will be covering Rob Reiner's 1987 fantasy classic, The Princess Bride, a movie that, if not already abundantly clear, might well be the most quotable movie ever made. I mean, it was impossible. I could not pick one quote for this film. And to be honest, I think I did really well stopping there, because I could have just quoted the whole goddamn film to you. It dropped like just an hour and a half podcast of me just delivering the script.
It's like you're the Cliff Note version of a podcast at the moment. You literally, if somebody wants to know just the ins and outs of this film, they just have to listen to that first introduction.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. No, but honestly, jokes aside, when I was rewatching this in particular, I was like, this might be the most quotable movie of all time. Like, the only film I could think of that jumped out to me as being comparable is maybe The Big Lebowski. But this is definitely in that pantheon of most quotable films, 100%.
Absolutely. I love all the quotes, and I'm with you. I was thinking to myself, I'm so glad you're the one doing the intro, because I couldn't pick out the first quote. When it first started, when you first did your quote, and I thought you were just going to stick at one, I was so surprised you did the dream of large women quote. All of them.
Well, that one, I think I picked that one first just because it was, like you're obviously, you're looking forward to the Inigo Montoya, You Killed My Father and all that jazz. But that was just one of the many that kind of jumped out at me. I also wanted to do the one about the classic blunder and never start a land war in Asia, but I really couldn't nail down his bizarro accent. So I was like, I'm not going to do Vizzini, whatever his name is. All right, I'm going to draw the line there. Not that I was particularly good at those quotes, but Jesus Christ, there are levels.
If you would have done the land war in Asia thing, would you have done the laugh to die thing where he's going,
I was thinking about that, but I feel like you need the visual thing of me kind of rolling over. And of course, everyone's just listening to this. So it just feel like it just ended abruptly. So again, if I was going to do the quote, I'd have to do the whole thing about, getting into a battle to the death with a Venetian or whatever it is. So yeah, got to draw the line somewhere. But yeah, this film, not only is it maybe one of the most quotable films, I would actually argue, especially going back and rewatching it, that this might be in that rare air of potentially perfect movies. Now, when I say perfect movies, I don't mean necessarily the best. I just mean perfect in so much that it just totally achieves what it set out to do, essentially. In the same kind of league, you say Back to the Future, I would say is an almost perfect film. I'm not saying it's the best film ever made, but it's an almost perfect film. And Predator, obviously we've done podcasts on both of these, and people might be like, Predator really? But in terms of achieving their goal of creating the perfect monster movie, the perfect B movie, I would say Predator absolutely nails it. And more importantly, I go back and I watch it, I'm like, I wouldn't change a single frame of this film. And it's the same with this. I wouldn't change a single frame. I can't imagine anyone else playing any of the characters. And it's just a big ass hug of a movie. This film makes me so happy.
It is a great movie. Perfect movie, I think, is probably a stretch. But what I love, it's a perfect retelling. Because what I'm trying to say is, like, Peter Falk he's narrating the story to his grandson at the beginning.
So sweet. Such a great framing device.
The film is basically like, so it skips things that he doesn't want to scare his grandson with. Things are just, the film is actually just like to be told to the child. So there's things that you wouldn't think work with the film, but because it's being explained to a 10-year-old, 9-year-old boy, do you know what I mean? He's skipping the worst part of it, and it's all just fun and it's exciting. And it is literally, you are reading a story to your child on film. It is done so well. It is just that is smile to your face every time you watch it. It's great.
It does, and that framing device in particular means that this film can get away with so much.
Yeah.
The fact that, as you say, it's like this film is a movie. I would say it's almost like the quintessential family movie, in so much that it is a movie literally for everyone. And there are bits where, as you say, you think, okay, this wouldn't be for a kid. But then the kid overtly says it. Like, you don't have to wait for the kids. It's like Fred Savage said, oh, no, they're not kissing. But then it goes out of the way to, like, explain on screen for you to say, oh, it is okay for a kid to like the romantic bits, but every time, you know, they're so self-aware. Every time they think, oh, if a kid was watching this, he might suddenly go, oh, I'm losing interest, or this isn't for me. It cuts back to Columbo reading Fred Savage from the Wonder Years, the book, as if saying, no, it's okay, I'll keep going, we'll get to the good bits soon. And it allows the film to tick so many, this film is so many genres in one. And it's not bits of genres, it's literally like the whole genre. It's not like, oh, there's a bit of fancy. It's all, I mean, it does, like, there's fancy elements, there's romance, there's satire, there's comedy, and it's somehow all of these things. And not only that, but it's successfully all of these things. And it's all, as you say, framed within this kind of device of having, oh, granddad reading his kid a book. Yeah. And that allows, again, this film to, because usually when you think of like a family film, like the perfect family films nowadays, I immediately go to Pixar as the great example of, oh, there's bits for the kids and then there's bits for the adults. This film somehow pulls off that magic trick of the kids for the bits for the kids are somehow also the bits for the adults and vice versa. Yeah. It works on both levels, and how it gets away with the cheesy romance, the overtly kind of slapstick comedy, but then go into some surprisingly dark places later on. It pulls off all these things, and somehow it all just feels natural.
Well, that's what I wanted to say as well, because the way it was, as I said, it is basically just him reading to his grandson. But if you look at the subject matter as well, that it's been lightened. Like you're kidnapping the princess to have her murdered so you can start a war with Gilda. You know, it's pirates, it's murder, it's revenge, it's adventure. Everything that it could be dark, or it could, well, I mean, that fire swamp for a start. You know, things like that. But it's all...
Well, there's stuff in there that could scare kids.
Yeah, exactly. But what I mean is it's still played down for kids. And it all feels like it is, again, just a grandfather reading to his grandson.
Well, again, like you said, like it works both ways, because there's the bits early on when it, like, and again, it's almost because it has that cutaway to, well, they never give names, are they? It's just the grandfather and the grandson, so Fred Savage and Columbo or Peter Falk. And it's just, it allows the film to go so heavy and so cheesy on the romance because it knows it's got that cutaway. So if anything, it's like, we're not just going to do romance, we're going to turn it up to 100. They're going to be so in love. It's going to be, the music's going to be overtly kind of cliche almost. But just as you think, oh, this is getting ridiculous, it cuts back to Fred Savage, oh, dude, this is too much. And it's like, no, it keeps going. But then the other end of the spectrum is when things are getting quite scary or quite dark, again, it cuts away. It's like, when I was younger, the bit that used to freak me out was the machine. And it's, I mean, the concept of it is pretty horrifying. Just the fact that he's like kind of, I don't know, tied down to this machine, which sucks literally years of your life. And the howl, that scream is absolutely horrifying. And just as you think, my God, this is getting dark, again, it cuts back to Fred Savage saying, whoa, Wesley can't be dead. And it's like, oh, maybe it's too much excitement for a kid and stuff. And so, no, you know, keep reading kind of thing. So it's this kind of like release valve where it's like every time it allows the film to kind of turn up the romance. It allows it to turn up the almost, you know, the kind of dark fantasy elements, because it knows it's always got that release valve where it can go back to the modern day, or well, quote unquote modern day, the 80s. And it's like, oh, everything's fine. It's just a book. No worries.
You mentioned the machine. I do want to, like, there's lots to cover with this film. I know that because you've already mentioned the machine now. As you said, it's scary to think of that this is the thing sucking life out of you. But as an adult watching this now, I am questioning how that machine works. Like, literally, they turn the dial up, it opens water goes through a mill, and all of a sudden he's getting life sucked out of him. I'm sat there thinking, and I appreciate everything else in this film, like it's all fantastical, but I'm thinking, how the hell does this machine work?
How does this machine work? But then I guess the other dark part of the film is explained in such gruesome detail. The bit when he's on the bed and Prince Humperdinck comes in to the pain. Yeah, that's some dark shit.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, next you'll cut off my ears. Wrong! You'll keep your ears so that you'll be able to hear the women scream as they walk past you in the street. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to cut off your feet, your arms, your ears. No, sorry, not your ears, your nose, your lips. I was like, oh God, dude, that sounds absolutely horrifying. But yeah, they just like, again, you can just keep it in the film because it gets to that dark part, and either you get that cutaway or something ridiculous happens because, again, when they turn up the slapstick, it's actually they really go for it. Like the famous As You Wish scene, when she pushes him down the hill. And suddenly it's like a Monty Python film. They're rolling down that hill for what feels like days. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they're going to break each other's necks. This is ridiculous.
Feels like, though? This film feels like, when you've got everything, like you just said, pushing down the hill, and you've got the rocks that are clearly styrofoam, and all this jumping around and stuff. This film clearly feels like a panto. Like a pantomime.
It does at times.
Yeah,
it does.
Right. And it's again, it goes back to that thing about the kids getting engaged in the pantomime. Just like, like he's behind you, you know, where's the bad guy? The good guy shows up. Everyone's elated because the good guy's here. But to start off with the film as well, you're meant to not know that the Dread Pirate Roberts is the good guy. You're meant to not know it's Wesley, even though when you first see him in the mask or not. And obviously, we all know it's Carrie Ells. But Oh
is it Carrie Ells or Carrie Elwes? I'm never sure how to pronounce it.
I always say Ells.
I started saying Carrie Elwes, and I'm like, did I hear that somewhere? Or have I just decided, no, this is the right way? This is the correct way to pronounce his name. I have no idea.
Is Wes, so you're just calling me like the Wes, Elwes in Spanish.
Elwes. Oh no, Dios mío, Elwes. Right. Let's go with that. I'm sticking with Elwes now, 100% because of that.
But the introduction of him. You know it's him because my God, that guy's got some smouldering eyes.
He's so like they might be the most beautiful on-screen couple of all time. Like Princess Buttercup and Wesley, or the Dread Pirate Roberts, whatever you want to call him. What is it? Carrie Elwes and Robin Wright. Yeah. God damn. They are good looking. In what year was this film released? 1987, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and that's one of the issues. I mean, the great thing is, again, like you said, the panto aspect. But it's almost like nowadays you'd watch it, and I think most kids would go, "Oh, it's like a superhero," because he shows up, he's got a mask. She should know, but everyone like just goes with it now. It's like Batman shows up. It's like, well, that's clearly Bruce Wayne, but because it's a superhero, everyone's fine. And let's make no mistakes. He's borderline a superhero. Like the whole point of him, he's the most handsome. He's the most romantic. He's he beats Fezzik in a fight. He beats Vicini in a game of wits. He beats Inigo in a sword fight. He is literally the best at everything. He is fundamentally a fantasy superhero. And he's got the master proof. You know, obviously the look is more inspired by, say, like a Zorro. But I think most kids that watch it today go like, oh, it's like old-timey Batman. It's just old-timey Batman who's just good at fucking everything and nobody knows who he is because he's got a little mask over his eye. That's fine. Let's run with it.
Batman was based on Zorro, wasn't he, in a way?
Yeah, exactly. And this is very much that kind of vibe. But like you said, there's such a beautiful couple. And sorry to butt in, but it's just to follow on along those lines. It's just one of the great things about this film is the fact that everybody in it, and it might seem a bit harsh, but nobody went on to be massive stars. They've all done fine in their own fields. You think of someone like Robin Wright in particular, who's made a bit of a comeback recently. I guess a lot of people would know her more from like Wonder Woman, for instance.
Yeah.
Or she was in Blade Runner 2049, I think, as well. But if you think, if say you were rewatching this film and say, realistically, it could have been, say, Tom Cruise and Demi Moore, they would like overpower it almost because you would just go back, oh, it's that Tom Cruise film or Demi Moore was in it. But because I just associate Carrie Elwes with this character, I associate Princess Buttercup with Robin Wright or, Andre the Giant. You just think Andre the Giant, you just think of this movie. I think that just makes it all the more perfect that rather than me thinking, oh, I'm watching these characters, I just think of, look, it's the Dread Pirate Roberts or it's Wesley, because their star power doesn't overburden the film. Like the real star of the film is probably Rob Reiner, considering when it was made.
Yeah.
But it's just such a shame because, obviously it's worked out for us in the long run because I love watching this film. And as I said, there's no distractions. There's no barrier between me and the film. There's no Tom Cruise who I have to deal with. But I just think with Carrie Elwes in particular, when I go back and watch this film, and I apologize again if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly for the rest of this podcast, but it is what it is, especially now we know it's Elwes, is the fact that he should have been a bigger star. But I think the problem, rather, like you go back and watch this film, it's like this guy's like leading man material through and through. But I think they doubled down on the comedic side rather than the smoldering hero side. So when he chose to do Robin Hood Men in Tights, I think that almost kind of cemented his place as being like people thought of him as this comedic hero. Whereas I think if he'd come off the back of this and done like, God, what were they doing in early 90s, like The Shadow or The Phantom or something ridiculous like that. But if he'd done a traditional hero role, I think it could have been a completely different career for him because, again, I look at him in this film, I'm like, God damn, man, that's a handsome dude right there. But it's a shame because nobody's really gone on to do anything massive after this.
I need to interject because you've gone about his handsomeness. But what I will say at the first, Jesus Christ, dude, you just went on a trail about how pretty Carrie Elwes is and Robin Wright as a couple. Like, oh, my
but they're so good. They're so good looking. I think, again, I'm just like, why wasn't... You think of other movies around... See, I'm doing it again.
Yeah, hang on.
You think of, like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Why didn't we see another 2 or 3 films where Carrie Elwes and Robin Wright were together in a romantic comedy or an action film? I'm just surprised that never happened. But I think a part of it is because when this film was released, it was a relatively modest success. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like people fell in love with this film immediately. It is like many of these films you go back and watch. It's a film where retrospectively, through VHS, through TV, DVD, etc., people have totally fallen in love with this film. But now, I mean, it is a cult movie, but I mean, the people love this film. Yeah. People really love this film, and obviously I'm one of them.
So what I have to say probably doesn't mean anything now because it probably had more impact about 5 minutes ago.
Sorry, mate.
I want
totally fucked that for you.
If I'm ever introduced on film, I want the cinematographer who did this to introduce me on film like he introduced Carrie Elwes. Because every time that guy was introduced as the fanboy, oh my God, he was smouldering. Like, just...
like, almost to a comedic level. Have you ever seen...
the wind is... Do you know, it reminds me of Top Secret, when you would introduce Val Kilmer. Because Val Kilmer is this handsome Elvis Presley-style guy. And every time they're introduced there, the wind's blowing through the hair, the light dims down just to show their eyes. And,
it's ridiculous. It's like, have you seen Final Space on Netflix? Yeah. It's like Final Space when he does he pulls the face and suddenly the wind shows up on his head. Or like The Rock in Jumanji, where one of his abilities is smoldering. Like it is literally like that. But it opens, as you say, the first thing you see of him is like, all right, we're gonna have like 2-3 minutes of him just smoldering aggressively. But again, in a lesser film, that it would just kind of like you'd be like, oh, this is too cheesy. And especially and they really lean into it. Like when, like you say, he's smoldering non-stop. They've got soft focus on Princess Buttercup, and the music is so on the nose, so ridiculously on the nose. But because they have those shifts in both theme, in genre, and in tone, it somehow keeps working. Like, this film really should be a mess. And what I found interesting was that a couple of years ago, I finally got Bethan to watch this. But when I talked to her, I was like, have you seen this? She goes, I've seen bits and I wasn't sure about it. And I was like, I totally get that. Because if you just watched a bit of this film, you'd be like, this is weird. Because if you watched like different bits, you'd be like, these all feel like they're from different films.
But not just that.
It works as a whole.
But if you watch it, like you pick a bit, without knowing the context of it, it feels like a made-for-TV film. Like with
I totally get that.
So the fact that then it's not a made-for-TV film and you understand what they're doing with it, it's fantastic. It is great. I want to actually bring up now one of my favorite scenes of the film, and it's probably going to be a lot of people's favorite scenes of the film, is the sword fight.
Oh, it's brilliantly choreographed. It's fantastic.
It is fantastically choreographed by them two, with 2 fencing champs, by the way. And I'll get to more of that, in fact. But before this film, my understanding of sword fighting or things like that is like Conan or the fantasy
Highlander.
Highlander, where they click swords 3 times, stab one person, and they die. Do you know what I mean? It's literal clicking, but there's no defensing, there's no guarding.
Well, no, in this, they literally comment on the different styles they're using as they're doing it. And of course, obviously, it's an old-fashioned film. Oh, sorry.
I love his accent, unless you have studied your Agrippa, which I have.
Which I have. Yeah. I must tell you, you're so good. Why are you smiling? Because I'm not left-handed. It's like that whole scene. Obviously, it's beautifully choreographed, but so much and of course, it's a throwback to, you're talking 40s and 50s movies, like the old-fashioned swashbucklers.
It's Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn. Yeah, it totally is, and it's stuff we're not accustomed to, especially back in the 80s, because as you say, we were accustomed to Conan and Highlander, and Star Wars even, which back then was quite clunky in terms of the actual choreography.
Yeah.
But what really makes it is the fact that you've got this fantastic choreography, but at the same time, the script is running at 1,000 miles per hour. Like the script is literally never better than when they are in battle. You don't just suddenly stop. Like you think of, say, something like there are elements in, say, Pirates of the Caribbean. When Pirates of the Caribbean is at its best, and you think they're having a sword fight, it's brilliant choreographed, and every so often they'll throw in a joke, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. They talk. There's like 6 jokes as they're fighting. It's unbelievably well written.
What you love is the fact that they are sword fighting. They're meant to be not mortal enemies, but they're on opposite sides of this confrontation. But they are so, it's not enamored. What word am I? Respectful of each other. They respect each other. They respect each other's stance. They respect each other's skill. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, straight away. Like you can see, like Inigo Montoya when he's climbing up, and it's like, oh, I'll help you up. But then as soon as he gives the speech, it's like, I swear on my father's grave that you will reach the top. And straight away, it's like, all right, I believe you. And he gives him a break, and they're just like, they have a little chat. They have a heart immediately.
It comes back to the cinematographer once again, because when Inigo Montoya gives that, I swear on my father, you will reach the top alive. The camera comes in, you get the smolden look again. Do you know what I mean?
It's brilliant. And like you said, like just before, he's like, I give you my word as a Spaniard. It's like, that's not going to fly, dude. Nobody trusts a Spaniard. But then all of a sudden, the lights go dim. It's like, I give you my word on my father's life. It's like, oh, dude, I've got to believe him. But then, like you said, like immediately, because that's like the first scene where they're on screen together, obviously. Yes. And you think of, what's his name? Is it Mandy Patinkin, who plays Inigo Montoya, and Carrie Elwes? And their immediate, like, rapport, their on-screen chemistry, it click. And it's not just, it's every character. As soon as they're on screen together, you feel like they've already filmed 4 or 5 scenes, and you're just like, wait a minute, no, this is the first time they've been on screen together, and already, like, you feel at home with those two. Well, so,
no more so than Andre the Giant, who was Fezzik.
Oh, dude, Fezzik,
Andre the Giant and Inigo Montoya, Mandy Patinkin. Their chemistry together, the way they are together, like the whole little rhyming scene that they were doing on the boat, that
it's
was
so charming.
Pissing off Vicini, and the fact it pissed him off made me happy. So
and
you know what I mean?
It's one of the, like, this film's like I think it's 95 minutes long, and one of the greatest strengths of this film, and it's something we've referred to in other films, is the fact that the narrative and the exposition is so economical. Like, with just a few lines between Vicini, Fezzik, and Inigo, you immediately get the dynamic. Like, there's no huge exposition dump about where they were. It's like, I think Vicini refers to the fact that you were drunk and you were, like, in the circus or something silly. And because of their attitudes, and of course, everything in this film is heightened, so the characters are all turned up to 11, so you can talk in broad strokes. But because that chemistry is just there immediately, it's like, as soon as it starts, you're like, yeah, I totally get the dynamic. And that works both amongst them and then between them and Wesley, or the Dread Pirate Roberts. Like, there's no need for a big explanation. As soon as it's on screen together, you're like, yeah, this just feels right. It just feels natural.
You get the understanding with Vicini as well. It's what Inigo says before they start their duel. I was going to say little duel then, but it's not.
Little duel, yeah.
Before they start their duel. And he says, well, I only work for Vicini to pay the bills because there's not much money in revenge. Revenge doesn't pay the bills. So it's just like, he's not doing it out of any kind of respect or anything for Vicini. It's literally just because he needs to pay some bills, which is quite funny thinking about it back then. Like, what bills is he paying?
Exactly. But like you said, like, with the cast, any other film, like, make no mistake, Andre the Giant is a god-awful actor. He's a god-awful actor. Yeah. But he has 2 things which really work in his favor. One, he's an actual giant, which is a huge thing. Like, nowadays you think, oh, you would have like CG or something. It's like, who would you, like, if you're recasting this film, who the hell's playing Andre the Giant? Like, a known giant? Nobody. And
before you go into the next thing, because you already mentioned he was an actual giant, I am going to steal a fact here. Facts for everyone. It's the fact that Liam Neeson auditioned for the role at 6'4", and Rob Reiner laughed at him because 6'4" is still too small to play Vicini.
Well, it's 100%. I mean, dude, I'm 6'7". Yeah, I'm a big dude, but I'm not like. There's a completely different. Like, even if you had right, to go back as a perfect example, I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. There's an Andre the Giant documentary. It was on HBO in America, and I think you can find it over here, maybe on Sky. And it's it's an unbelievable watch. Even if you're not interested in wrestling, you should totally go back and watch the Andre the Giant documentary, because it's just such an interesting insight into what his life was like. But there was one wrestling match, because they always said like everyone had the utmost respect for Andre the Giant because he was just so big. There's a wrestling match when he's in the ring with Big John Studd. Now, Big John Studd is 6'11", yeah? Mm-hmm. And he said, they're doing an interview with Big John Studd. It's like, because he was like, oh, I'm the giant. I'm 6'11", and I get in the ring. And he did this thing where he steps over the top rope. And he's like, Andre was like, that's my thing. And he said, you know, you look at him, and of course, I think Big John Studd might have actually been a little bit taller than him. But he said, and you can see the video, he grabs Big John Studd by the chest, and all he does is just shake the shit out of him. And he said, I'm 6'11", and it was like I was being manhandled like I was a child. Yeah. Because it's like, I'm tall and I'm big, but he's a giant. He said he put his hands on me and just shook me. And it's just like, all of a sudden, you're just like, I have no defense. There's nothing. He's too big. He's too strong. I'm big. He's a goddamn giant. And that's the difference.
Do you know how tall he is?
He's 7 foot or something?
Yeah, he was 7'4".
Was he actually 7'4"? The thing is, he never actually looks that tall because quite often he stooped because of his bad posture. And obviously he had a bad back. And we'll get to some of these in facts, I'm sure. But like I said, it's not about him necessarily even being tall. He's just ginormous. He is literally like a fairy tale giant. But my second point was the fact that he's so charming. He's so utterly charming. Like, there's a great scene at the end of the film where they've not really spent much time together, but when Princess Buttercup is on the window ledge, and Fezzik shows up with the horses. Yeah. And he gives such a charm. He's like, I saw these horses and I thought, there's 4 of us and stuff. And the way she looks at him, like, she's immediately enamored by how charming he is. And you totally buy into it. You don't need to have had exposition or them to have had previous interactions. You're like, oh, of course you would trust him because he's the most charming giant in the world. It's ridiculous.
That comes from filming as well, doesn't it? Because of the way he would look after him. We'll get to that, in fact, how he looked after her.
Yeah. But like I said, it just speaks to the film where everything is just running perfectly. That a guy who can hardly act, and he, in a traditional way, he's not a great actor, but on screen he works perfectly.
I love the smile she gives him when he says, I saw 4 horses. I thought there would be 4 of us if we found the lady. And there she is. Hi, lady.
Like, hey, lady. Yeah. And she just falls for him straight away in the same way you can imagine Inigo did. Like, as soon as he saw him, it's just like, oh, I just love this guy. Like, I just want him, he's obviously taking, like, even though he's a giant, he knows, of course, physically he can take care of himself, but he knows Vizzini is basically picking on him. So he's like, oh, no, I'm going to be the one who takes care of him. And because they have that little scene where Vizzini's an asshole, but then he just jumps in, like, no big thing. He doesn't, like, go after Vizzini. He's just like, oh, don't worry, we'll do the little rhyming game because, I know how smart you are and stuff like that. And one of the things, actually, like, Dread Pirate Roberts, like, he has the fight with Inigo, and he's just like, oh, I could never destroy an artist such as yourself, so he knocks him out. He just puts, Fezzik to sleep and hopes that he dreams of large women. But Vizzini dies. Oh, yeah, Vizzini is dead. So because he's not an honourable man.
There could have been many ways to take out Vizzini, but he had it in his mind. Well, I mean, of all 3 of them, the only person who's threatened Daisy's or Buttercup's life, the only one who threatened her life so much was Vizzini. So Vizzini had to go.
Yeah, Vizzini had to go because you can't be, So that's why. Although they did let Princess Humperdinck survive at the end.
Prince Humperdinck.
Did I say Princess Humperdinck? Sorry, yeah. Prince Humperdinck. Yeah. And he's fantastic.
It was more for people to know that he was a coward. And I want to get into Chris Sarandon because he's great in this. After seeing him in like Fright Night,
so good.
And seeing him in this.
Yeah.
I do love him because obviously it was his plan then to have her kidnapped to be killed on the border to start a war with Gilda. Mm-hmm. But I love how because he knows what's going on, so he's pretending to be some sort of fantastic tracker. Do you know what I mean? Like
some of his lines are amazing.
A great duel happened here, and then the next one is somebody fought a giant. Like, how the fuck do you know that without knowing there was an actual giant? How do you know that somebody fought a giant?
I mean, so it's like, unless I am wrong, and I am never wrong. So, one of my favorite, and it's again a low-key line in the film, but the way when he has Buttercup there, it's like, oh, please consider me as an alternative to suicide. It's like, oh, what a charming line. What a charming line. He's horrendous. What's his buddy's name? The guy who does the torture and stuff.
Oh, what is his? I know him. I know him as, like, his real name is Christopher Guest. But what the?
Yeah, I mean, he gives one of the harshest lines in the film where he thinks Inigo's he's basically killed Inigo when he throws the dagger and hits him in the chest.
Yeah,
he's like, wait, you've been chasing me for 20 years and you failed. I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard. And I'm just like, oh, God. Not like, oh, that's horrible. Like, the worst thing I've ever heard. Like, as he's dying, I was like, oh, my God. This guy's, and just after he's obviously tortured Wesley almost to death. He doesn't get many lines, but he's low-key horrendous all the same.
And it's his other one as well, when Inigo Montoya keeps going in, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. And he's going, stop
saying that. Jesus Christ. Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's such a deplorable character. Like, I'm happy to see him go. But when I went rewatch it, I was like, I am surprised that they let Prince Humperdinck go. But hey, ho, man. Maybe it was just because, listen, if we have a sequel, we're going to need Prince Humperdinck back because he's fantastic in this film.
Count Rugen. Christopher Guest was Count Rugen.
That's it. But it's weird because this film is so timeless in so many respects, both in the way it's shot, both in the fact that it's a classic fantasy film, especially if you watch this film in HD, you're like, would you necessarily pick this out as being a film that was made in the 80s? No, it could have been made in the 50s almost. It could have been more recent. Everything about it is timeless, but what, inexorably links it to the 80s is Fred Savage's bedroom. It's you have all this stuff, fantasy. It's like, oh my God, this could have been made at any time. It's totally timeless. Oh no, that is the most 80s bedroom I have ever seen in my life. And I mean, this sounds weird to say, I love 80s kids' bedrooms, but there is something about them, the posters, the toys. And this, we did it recently in Poltergeist, where obviously he had like a whole bunch of like cool movie posters and toys from the year. And of course, it's because we can relate to it because we were a similar age back then. But you look at this and it's like, he's got all the He-Man toys lined up on the side. He's got the fridge poster, like the quintessential NFL player. I love all that stuff. It's fantastic. And of course, he's got Columbo reading the book to him. It's ridiculous.
It's funny you should say that. I had a Facebook memory pop up the other day. I put it on a couple of years ago. A picture that was taken of me as a kid in my 80s bedroom. And it was just taglined as typical 80s bedroom. I'm asleep under my Masters of the Universe wallpaper.
Awesome.
With shorts and t-shirt pajamas that were buttoned up and had the pocket. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. That is classic 80s right there.
My Mr. T in the pocket, right?
Nice. In the pocket?
Yeah, I had him in my pocket. I had my Street Hawk helmet on.
Jesus Christ. This is 80s. This is putting Fred Savage to shame.
Yeah. And, obviously the 80s headboard. I can't remember the bedspread I had, but I think it was like one of those 80s football bedspreads or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to think.
I look back to see
picture out and show you. It is quintessential 80s, honestly.
Oh, I love all that. I had like the Marvel, like, again, not based on the movies, obviously, because this is the 80s, but based on like the Secret Wars, like the comic book. It was like a lot of the kind of imagery around that time was based on that comic run in particular. And I had the bedspread with like Captain America and stuff. And again, in his room, he's got a Captain America toy. He's even got like, again, it's quite strange because when I think of America in particular, I just assume in like 87 he'd be playing a Nintendo, but he's actually playing a Commodore 64. He's playing a baseball game called Hardball. And it's like, again, I had in 1987, I'm like, wait, I probably had a Commodore 64 in 1987, but it did seem strange that he was playing that instead of a NES. But yeah, there's like a cornucopia of like popular culture icons all over that room. The only thing I was surprised that wasn't there, and I'm not sure if it's a timing issue, but I feel like Alf should have made an appearance at some point. Like, where the hell was Alf? Judge Dredd was there though. But yeah, like as I said, it's just one of those films where, again, if you came in and you saw one scene individually, you might be like, well, this is a bit cheesy or this is a bit ridiculous. But as a film, it works absolutely perfectly. And it's when you go back and rewatch it. So I'm having a look at the picture of him with his Nighthawk mask on. That is very He-Man wallpaper, in fairness.
That's the one thing I forgot, the Etch-a-Sketch next to me as well.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, man. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, mate, it's pasted 80s, that is. Yeah, my football bedspread, the floral headrest,
Yeah, it is, for those who can't see it, which of course is everyone but me, it is comically 80s.
You know what? I might have to put onto our...
Oh, you have to put on, like, if you guys get a chance, have a look on the Facebook group, because we'll put it on there for sure. It's the most 80s thing we've ever seen.
We'll pop that onto social media, just me as a kid in the most 80s bedroom you have ever seen.
Just doing 80s shit. But yeah, it's one of those films, like, those individual scenes, if you saw them on their own, they might not work if you'd never seen the film, but once you've seen the film all the way through, suddenly you could handpick any scene from this film and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's so charming. You think of like films which are cut into like YouTube clips nowadays. You can almost cut this entire film into totally watchable 2-minute segments, and they would all work.
You've already proved that by the introduction because of the quote.
Quoting half the film, yeah.
Quote, like, and every quote is pretty much memorable. So it's the same thing, and they're all from memorable scenes. The only one totally. That you didn't do, which made me laugh every time I hear it, and it's a trope because it always happens with the bad guy who turns, as Americans say, turns on a dime. But it's the head brute. Give us the key. I have no gate key. Fezzik tears his arms off. Oh, you mean this gate key?
This key.
I love how quick he does it. Like, it's so funny.
There's so many. I mean, again, quite a R-rated quote later in the film when she's about to kill herself, and you're like, oh no, Princess Buttercup's about. And he's like, whoa, there's a shortage of perfect breasts in the world. It would be a shame to damage yours. Yeah. It's like all of a sudden, like that line almost seems out of place, but oddly, again in this film, kind of works. And you think of there's moments of broad comedy. I mean, it comes to the fore in particular. I'd say actually it's the only bit of the movie outside of the scenes in the bedroom, obviously, which are obviously in the 80s. The only film which makes it feel quote unquote modern are the scenes with Miracle Max. Like those scenes when they go in, obviously we're at the point in the film now, so they all think Wesley or the Dread Pirate Roberts is dead. But as they say, they go there to get a miracle. They found out he's actually only mostly dead, so that's absolutely fine. And what's his name? Billy Crystal playing Miracle Max. He starts delivering lines and jokes which feel quite modern. Like they actually feel out of place with the rest of the film. Like a lot of the comedy earlier in the film, it's either by playing with the gentle satire of the film. Like they're satiring the genre, the fantasy genre, but never with any bite. It's a very excuse me, it's a very positive satire, if that makes any sense. They're not really criticizing the genres. They're playing with them and kind of turning up the tropes to 11 kind of thing. But those scenes with Miracle Max, I'm like, this suddenly feels like almost like a Saturday Night Live like sketch. Yeah. It's the only, and don't get me wrong, I like that scene, but it's the only scene in the film where I'm like, it's one which kind of places it in a certain time and place.
You can guarantee, like Bill Murray, that Billy Crystal probably didn't have a script. Billy Crystal probably an idea of where his character needs to go, and then he just, because the whole like MLT thing and everything was definitely him.
Yeah, 100%. And like obviously this is a Rob Reiner film, and they had a pretty close relationship around then. But and again, we've mentioned this, I think, when we did the Stand By Me podcast, but obviously that was quite a while ago now. But just as a reminder, like going back and watching this film, I'm still of the mindset that Rob Reiner might have had one of maybe the greatest director outside of Spielberg, perhaps, when you're talking about the late 70s going into the 80s. But Rob Reiner's run from 84 to 92, and like, just be clear, we're not skipping bad films. I'm not leaving any. This is every film he directed. Sorry. So Spinal Tap 84, The Sure Thing 85, Stand By Me 86, The Princess Bride 87, Harry Met Sally 89, Misery in 1990, and A Few Good Men in 1992. That is an unbelievable run of just non-stop gold, which was derailed spectacularly by North in 1994. That was, if you're going to end a run with a car crash, it might as well be an absolute pilot, and that really was.
I completely forgot he did Misery, because Misery is such a left turn for the rest of his filmography. It really is. For the rest of the films he directed. And then it goes, oh, by the way, let's do Misery with one of the worst, well, I say worst, I don't think you've seen many hobbling scenes. Do you know what I mean? So
it is a truly horrifying scene. And that is one of the things you'll say about that run as well. It's like, it's all over the map in terms of genre, tone, style. But my God, in terms of like success, fuck me. Unbelievable.
I'm not so sure North is as bad as you say it is.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's terrible. Do you know what, right? I will go on record saying right now, I would rather watch North 5 times in a row than any of the Bruce Willis films I am seeing advertised lately.
Like, yeah, maybe we could do a podcast one day about terrible modern day. I'm not going to watch all the films; just the trailers is fine. But yeah, that.
What is he? Like, I've seen probably in the last 4 weeks about 6 new Bruce Willis films coming up in 2020.
And just to be clear, for anybody who's suddenly confused as to like why the hell are they talking about modern day Bruce? Well, Bruce Willis was in North, because I'm let's go on record. I don't think many people have actually seen North, so I think, well, why are they suddenly in this podcast doing a 5-minute aside on shitty Bruce Willis films? It's because North was a really shitty Bruce Willis film. But North is, I totally agree, so much better than the last, 10 films he's made in the last 2 years? Real dog shit.
More people have seen North than you can imagine. North is fantastic.
Oh, well, settle down. See, you're comparing them to the modern day Bruce Willis stuff, which is basically, we're talking Steven Seagal stuff. That's what we're talking about. It's terrible. It's the old school straight to DVD nonsense, poorly directed, poorly acted. You can see he's phoning it in. Don't watch these films. You don't need to. Just watch. I would go just watch the last 5 trailers, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Rough stuff. It seems an odd place to end talking about the movie, about Bruce Willis's terrible modern input.
I've got a couple.
All right, cool. Thank God. Yeah, you need to save the day here.
Yeah. So there are a few things I wanted to mention as you going through the film. Obviously, there's just some things you kind of pull out, which make me laugh. Like Andre the Giant invented the Vulcan nerve pinch. I'm sure. Like if this is set way before Star Trek.
Yeah, I guess theoretically it's set before Star Trek, yes.
Like, oh my God, when he just pinched the side of that guy's neck. Oh no, Daisy. Sorry, keep saying fucking Daisy. Buttercup, and just sent her to sleep. It is basically the Vulcan nerve pinch there. But Andre the Giant's hands,
so big.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so they're cutting off circulation to everything.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's any. The thing is with a Vulcan neck grip, what are they called? Vulcan death grips, pinch. Neck grips, Vulcan nerve pinch. Jesus Christ, I got that completely wrong. Nerve pinch. You're assuming that there's a certain level of skill where it's all about finding the perfect place, maybe even the perfect timing to put them to sleep. This is just a giant man squeezing apart your body until you go to sleep. It's just like, yeah, that is it. He's just that big. I don't think there's any delicacy to what he's doing. He's just too big. It's like when he says he hits the guy in the head, he's like, I just hit him too hard. He's probably dead now. I apologize.
Vicini, played by Wallace Shawn, I always knew his voice. And as you go along, you see his face all the time and everything. But he was Rex from all the Toy Stories.
Yeah. That was oddly enough one of those things I found out when I was doing the research for this film. I was like, what else has he been? Because that voice is so distinct. And when it was Rex, I was like, of course he was Rex. I was like, how didn't I hear that before? It's so obvious when you see the 2 names attached. But it never, I've seen 4 Toy Story movies and it never clicked for me either. It's insane. Absolutely insane. But
with everything as well that should take you out of the film, the one thing that takes me out, and I think that will never happen, is the length of time it takes Vicini to cut that massive fucking rope with that dagger. Like, that's a letter opener that dude's got. Going through that like a knife through butter.
Yeah, there's that. And how long, let's be clear, when they're kind of like charging the gates and Andre the Giant is pretending to be the Dread Pirate Roberts and he's on the wheelbarrow and stuff like that, he's on fire for a long time. Yeah. He's on fire for a little bit too long. I'm just like, dude, shouldn't you be worried at this point? You're all on fire. You're not covered in any kind of fire retardant kind of like chemicals here. This is just a giant cloth on fire with you guys in it. I'm pretty sure you would have all burnt alive in it. But I'll allow it for the sake of the movie.
I wonder if they got advice from the guy that did Freddy from A Nightmare on Elm Street last.
Yeah. Where he's just like, I'm just going to stay on fire. Where it's just like, well, you've got to keep the whole thing. It's like, dude, this is supposed to be like a 5-second clip, but the dude stayed on fire for a minute, so we're gonna have to put the whole minute in. It's like fair enough.
Nightmare on Elm Street was 87 as well, wasn't it? So they could have.
Yeah. Maybe it was just the vintage year for people being on fire, and maybe it is a similar situation where the guy in the suit, where it's just like, dude, he's been on fire for a minute, and he's not panicking, he's not backing out. So we've got to put the whole minute in the film. It seems only fair. I think it's one of those rules. Like if you're on fire, they need to put the whole thing in the movie. As long as you're on fire, that's going on screen. End of story. Well, that was certainly how they played it in 1987 anyway.
Whether or not you end up with 3rd-degree burns or you're not coming back from this, if you're on fire, we're going to keep her in the film. We'll
keep rolling. He's still on fire. Just keep it up. You go to the edit room. It's like, dude, there's 3 minutes of this guy being on fire. Yeah, I know, but he was on fire the whole time. It all goes in. We'll have to cut 2 characters and a whole side story, but we're keeping the dude on fire in for the full 3 minutes. That's all there is to it.
Did this guy survive? No, he's still on fire. Wait, this was filmed 4 weeks ago. Yeah, he's still on fire. We've
still got the camera rolling. We've just made 3 sequels. Jesus Christ.
Only fire that's been longer than him is the Springfield tire fire.
Yeah, that's probably the only one. That is the only one. It does go on for far too long. But yeah, usually this is where we move on to facts. But instead of that, what could do?
Fire went on. Him being on fire went on for far too long. Almost as long as this fucking bit we've done about things being on fire.
I know. We've really stretched this out. But yeah, usually at the end of like this section, where we just talk about the film, usually we go straight into facts. Yeah. But just as like a way to sum up the movie, we're going to do a very quick fire love and hate section. So it's literally just 3 things we love and 3 things we hate about the film. So I'm just going to read them out real quick. Basically, in terms of what I love, pointers on how to live. So I will never get involved in a land war in Asia. I mean, it is one of the classic blunders. I will never do that. 2, Andre the Giant being inexplicably brilliant. He really shouldn't be, but he's fantastic in this film. And I think we've already mentioned it, boys' bedrooms from the 80s, which if you cut that out as a clip on its own is going to make me sound very dodgy indeed. Do you want to do your love? Because this is the first time we've done this. Do we do like what I love, then what you love, and then what I hate? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So go for it.
Let's have a love fest and a hate fest.
Yeah. Love fest.
That quote you just said about boys' bedrooms in the 80s, I am so using that as the tagline for this next.
Fantastic. Yeah. Liam loves boys' bedrooms from the 80s. Fantastic.
Right. So, sword fight.
Yeah, brilliant.
The chemistry between Andre the Giant and anybody else.
Fantastic. And that's so much more eloquently put than my own point, but hey ho.
And randomly, Chris Sarandon as Humperdinck. His smarminess is done so well. And I know we don't have to explain, like this is not for us to explain everything. We're just going to quick fire what we said. I just love Chris Sarandon in this film. After seeing him in Friday Night into this, he's great in this. He is really good.
He is brilliant. He's brilliant.
All right. So hate, even though it might be a strong word.
Hate's tricky. Yeah. Hate's tricky in this one. But I was like, what do I hate about this film? Well, I hate the idea of being mostly dead. That doesn't sound very fun at all. Because of this film, I can't take weddings seriously anymore. I literally went to a wedding and the fucking priest kept saying marriage. And all I heard was marriage. And I started laughing. And the problem was I was like leaning over to Beth and I was like, marriage, right? Marriage. And she's like, I was like, you haven't seen Princess Bride, have you? It's like, for fuck's sake, it's just me thinking about the end of this film. So yeah, that was a pain in the ass. And I guess rodents of unusual size. Nobody likes rodents of unusual size. And I'm cheating a little bit here, but just what it's in my head. The main theme to this film is terrible. Storybook Love by Mark Knopfler and Willie DeVille is an absolute stinker. We'll get to that obviously in soundtrack, but yeah, I'm not a fan of that either.
I loved it.
Did you?
When you're going to say soundtrack, I was going to come up with, I might not now, I might edit this part out, but I was going to say, I actually haven't heard the end credit song until this week when I watched this film. And I was like, I really like this.
Oh, dude, it felt like a South Park song. It literally felt like a South Park song. They're clearly taking it very seriously, but it sounds like a send-up. It's ridiculous. I really didn't like it. Sorry. But
So, my 3 things I hate, and I'm kind of cheating on this one because I couldn't think of a lot I hated on this one. So, Vicini's face, Vicini's voice, and Vicini alone. The guy did my Sweden, dude. Like his voice, when he started yelling and shouting, I just wanted to scratch my ears out.
Well, that's a great thing. He's like the only, they kill 2 people in this film and they are just the worst. But yeah, Vicini is without question. He's like the low-key villain of the film. And I can't believe we've gone all the way through this podcast and not said there's one very obvious word, which we haven't said.
Well, his entire bloody acting, his entire performance is inconceivable.
It certainly is. We had to say inconceivable at some point. Inconceivable. This word you were saying, I don't think it means what you think it means.
So caught me out on that in a previous episode, didn't you? We did it with Dave. What was the episode?
You literally kept saying it. It's like, it wasn't inconceivable, but it wasn't, however you were saying it, it wasn't the right way. So next up, I guess, is facts. This is your round, dude. So go hit me with the facts.
Cool. So, sorry, I was about to say, shouldn't I do what I hated? But I just said, yeah, I pretty much hate all of the scene. So,
Yeah.
When asked what his favorite thing about making this film was, Andre the Giant replied without skipping a beat, "Nobody looks at me." He felt treated as an equal without people staring at him because of his brand size.
That's nice.
During the filming of some scenes, the weather became markedly cold for Robin Wright. Andre the Giant helped her by placing one of his hands over her head. His hands were so large that one would entirely cover the top of her head, keeping her warm. So literally just, you know what, let's just put my hand on her head and just, yeah.
I love the fact that the whole fact section is just going to be how lovely Andre the Giant was. It's great.
Well, it's pretty much like, what's the other one? It's one I hadn't got written down, but I remember it. There was a scene where Andre the Giant let out a 16-second fart.
Yeah, I remember that.
That pretty much just stopped everyone. And Rob Reiner just turned around to him and said, "Are you okay?" And he went, "I am now, boss." The reason I said
fantastic.
The reason I said that one, obviously, because it's funny about a 16-second fart. Because if you think about it, you say 16 seconds and it doesn't sound that long. But as a fart,
yeah, but you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Still farting. 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, still farting, still going, 16. So, like, that whole time, just one long fart. I mean, the first question is like, oh my God, he is aggressively shit himself. And if Andre the Giant shit himself, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be an event. I assume he has somebody who deals with these things. I don't know. He's very famous and very rich. Crazy. I can't believe I counted the whole 16 seconds. I do apologize.
Jesus Christ. When Count Rugen hits Wesley over the head, Cary Elwes, you got me saying it now. We're going to have to find out how to say his name properly. Cary Elwes told Christopher Guest to go ahead and hit him for real. Guest hit him hard enough to shut down production for a day while Elwes went to the hospital.
Fantastic.
Because he hit him.
No, hit him, of course. It's not him telling, no, you can hit me. It's the director saying, no, hit him harder.
He hit him with the butt of the sword as well, didn't he? So
yeah.
Smacked this thing across the back of his head.
Jesus Christ.
Director Rob Reiner left the set during Billy Crystal's scenes because he would laugh so hard that he would feel nauseated. Mandy Patinkin claims that the only injury he sustained during the entire filming of the movie was bruised ribs due to stifling his laughter in his scenes with Billy Crystal. His attempt at holding back his laughter is obvious from his facial expression during his line, "This is noble, sir." So apparently everyone was just going nuts at Billy Crystal because he just...
Well, yeah, he's really let loose in that scene. It is one of those classic... Obviously, he's got all the makeup on, but they're just like, listen, like you said, you wouldn't be that surprised if the majority wasn't scripted and it's just off the cuff. It's just like, all right, Billy, here's the general idea. You're this character. He's got to be brought to life. Go. Just do whatever the fuck you want and just off to the races.
So according to author William Goldman, when he was first trying to get the movie made in the 70s, a then unknown Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to play Fezzik. And he was strongly being considered because Goldman could never get his first choice, Andre the Giant, to read for the role. By the time the movie was made, about 12 years later, Schwarzenegger was such a big star they could not afford him. Andre was cast after all, and the two big men had gone on to become friends.
Well, it's easy to forget and to not realize, I guess, looking back now, is just how famous Andre the Giant was. Yeah. Like, and the thing is, it's almost weird for us because you see it, and he's so nice in this. And I'm not sure if it's the same. I assume it's the same for you. When I grew up, Andre the Giant was always a heel. Like, you know, when I think of Andre the Giant, I think of WrestleMania 3, and I think of SummerSlam 88, because SummerSlam 88 was the first VHS wrestling I ever rented. And it was Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan as the Superpowers versus Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. And at that point, he was already having health problems. But of course, you know, he was very much a heel. And for the rest of his career in the WWF, that's what he was. But for years in the 70s, going into the 80s, he was always the good guy. And it was before WWF, where all the wrestling was regional. And all these companies, they used to rent out, essentially, Andre the Giant. And he used to show up in these towns. And of course, you've got to remember, this is before, you know, wrestling was on TV on a regular basis. It was all regional stuff. And before the internet. So all they would hear is like, Andre the Giant is an actual giant and he's coming to town. And people would go insane. They're like, oh my God, it's Andre. I have to see this actual giant. And of course, they'd go and see him wrestle in these like regional wrestling competitions or divisions, whatever you want to call them. And fucking Andre the Giant shows up, and he's an actual giant. And I think he had some ridiculous record where he was unbeaten for like 10 years. Because, of course, that was his shtick. He would just show up and just beat whoever the local kind of wrestler was, you know. And when I say local, we are talking state level. But that was just how wrestling used to be set up in the 70s and early 80s.
But he was never off his feet until Hogan power slammed him, was he?
Body slammed him in WrestleMania 3. So that was like a massive deal. But yeah, it was, as I said, it was like he was always the good guy. But it was when we were growing up, we always thought of, oh, he's the heel. He's the bad guy, Andre the Giant. And it was in complete contrast to in this film, where he's just like the nicest fucking guy in the world. It's unbelievable. He's one of the most charming screen presence I've ever seen, despite the fact he can't act and you don't know what the hell he's saying half the time. Crazy.
So we've gone on to Andre the Giant quite a lot. So Andre the Giant called almost everybody on set because be they directors, producers, co-stars or crew, boss. A technique he employed to defer people he liked and go some way towards counteracting the way he would tower over them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got some guy, as we've already said, who is just, oh my God, he's like three of you standing over you, but he's called you boss. Do you know what I mean? It kind of like, it humanizes him at that point, and it humanizes the situation,
He's basically saying, it's like, well, you're in charge, you just treat me like you would anyone else. And as you said, like, you know, earlier, that whole idea, like he's on set, and he's like, nobody's kind of like freaking out. No one's like, oh, I've got to get a photo with him and stuff. It's just like, he's just another member of the cast. That's it. So totally charming.
This one's quite good. So the giant rodents were created with diminutive actors inside rat suits. On the day Wesley was supposed to wrestle one of them, the main actor, Danny Blackner, he was nowhere to be found. Finally, Blackner arrived on set with a long story about being pulled over for speeding the night prior on his way home from the bar, and subsequently being put in jail for a few hours for drinking, after the police officer didn't believe his story about having to work as an actor stuntman playing a rat. Can you imagine?
That's a shame, isn't it?
You pull over like a diminutive actor, and he tells you, "Oh, I got to be in work tomorrow because I'm a stuntman rat on a production."
A rat standing. And around this time, it was, you know, again, that whole thing about physical effects versus special effects. Like you see, like they have these monster film, and a film I keep bringing up was The Predator, like one of the most disappointing films I've seen in recent times. And they had those like Predator dogs, but they were all CG and it didn't have any impact. Whereas like you see this, and because that's got that tangible nature, the rodents of unusual size are pretty freaky. And especially the dogs in Willow, which we did last week, like they are so effective as it's just dogs dressed up as giant dog rat things. But because, again, it has that physical impact, because you can see unequivocally that they're real, even if they're something real in costume or whatever, I just think it works so much better and just makes them so much more kind of gross, basically, for lack of a better term.
Right, so only a couple more from me then. In order to create the greatest sword fight in modern times, Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin trained for months with Peter Diamond and Bob Anderson, who between them had been in the Olympics, worked on Bond, Lord of the Rings, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Star Wars films, and coached Errol Flynn and Burt Lancaster. Every spare moment on set was spent practicing. Eventually, when they showed Rob Reiner the sword fight for the movie, he was underwhelmed and requested that it be at least 3 minutes long rather than the current 1 minute. Yeah. They added steps to the set, watched more swashbuckling movies for inspiration, re-choreographed the scene, and ended up with a 3-minute and 10-second fight, which took the better part of a week to film from all angles. That's a long one.
It is a long one, but again, you think it almost goes under the radar just how good the sword fight is because the dialogue is so good. And it's just suddenly you realize it works on both levels. It's almost like if you muted that scene, you'd be like, this is an amazingly choreographed, old-fashioned swashbuckling sword fight. And as we mentioned, it is fantastically choreographed. But you almost don't notice the fact that it's so brilliant because you're more tuned into because the dialogue in that scene is so good. So it's happening. And it was only, again, watching maybe the movie with a more critical eye, I was like, God damn, this choreography is unbelievable. And one of the great things, you think about a modern day equivalent is like Tom Cruise. When you see Tom Cruise doing his stunts, you suddenly notice when you see a film and you have those cutaways. What's that? Sorry?
You wish they'd fail?
No, not that. But like if you suddenly watch Bond or something like that, and you start noticing the cuts because you're like, well, that bit has to be a stuntsman, or they go to CG because, of course, Daniel Craig's not doing that. And then you suddenly watch Mission Impossible and you're like, you see it up front in person. It's like, this is Tom Cruise doing that. it's the same in this. The camera's on them the whole time. There's always those wide shots. You can see them both in focus. And like, this isn't stuntmen doing these things. The actors have learned the moves and they're going through the motions, and they have to be there because they're delivering dialogue throughout the whole thing. And it makes for what might be the best scene in one of the best movies. It's unbelievable.
The names that...
Sorry, bit of a rant.
I just wanted to say, you've gone on all that until Tom Cruise breaks his ankle and has to shut production down instead of just using a proper stuntman. But
forget that. You can't have it. Can't have it. Tom Cruise got to do his own shit. I love Tom Cruise. You're wrong. You're wrong. You hate Tom Cruise and you love North. History's on my side, dude. Also, history's on my side.
Karate Kid sucks. Right, the names that Inigo and Wesley refer to in the chatty duel sequence are all actual fencing terms. Do you like the fact they just carried on it so you couldn't see?
Yeah. It was the right way to go, I think.
Sequences are all actual fencing terms named after their 14th and 15th century proponents. Benetti's defense refers to refraining from attacking on uneven terrain. Capo Ferro refers to a linear attack, the best for uneven terrain. Thibault refers to angular defenses, attacks, and Agrippa refers to natural short sword movements which cancel out angular defenses and attacks. And I can never say Agrippa without thinking of it, unless
of doing a Spanish accent. Of course.
Unless your opponent studies as Agrippa, which I have.
See, now I'm going to have the problem where every time I say hello to anyone, I do it in a Spanish accent. I'll just mean hello. And they'll be like, is he Spanish? No, he's definitely not Spanish. He's just an asshole.
Is he Spanish, or is he just doing Inigo Montoya?
Yeah, I think he's just doing Inigo Montoya. Is he going to do the whole... Oh, Jesus Christ, he's doing the quote. I'm just going to leave. Yes, probably for the best.
I can't leave. We're recording a podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
This is my last one. Despite his character Fezzik's almost superhuman strength, Andre the Giant's back problems at the time prevented him from actually lifting anything heavy. Robin Wright had to be attached to wires in the scene where Buttercup jumps from the castle window into Fezzik's arms because he couldn't support her himself. Now, let me just say this, right? She had to be attached to wires to jump from a window into his arms. Even if he's strong enough to catch her, attach her to wires. Don't be over a fucking window hoping that he will...
No, I suspect they would have still had her attached to wires, but yeah, I take their point. Like, he should be able to take her weight, but it just speaks to is how, this was already towards the end of his wrestling career and not actually a million years away from when he actually passed away.
Yeah.
And you could see it even in the wrestling rings back then. It was like he would come in and obviously he was never bounding around the ring like a lunatic, but even from when we started watching it, certainly from the late 80s going into the 90s, his range of movement was so limited. And he was very much an impact guy. He'd walk over the top, he'd hit someone on the back, and he'd be out of there kind of thing. But he was already toiling quite a bit by the late 80s.
That? Just, you don't need wires. Andre's going to catch you. Now, go.
Go. Yeah. Aim for the giant. Aim for the giant. Okay, fair enough. Off you go, Princess Buttercup.
Please, just attach her to wires anyway. If he's strong enough to catch her, just make sure she's...
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I would say, I know it's the 80s, and as we've said a million times, we're talking about like cocaine being, in abundant use. But I would say if you're throwing anybody out of a window 2 stories or more up, get some wires on them, for heaven's sake. Jesus Christ.
You take these facts with a grain of salt, like people wrote. But just reading that then, and it's saying he had back problems, so she had to be attached to wires. And you think, fucking attach her to wires anyway.
Yeah. No, I think we are kind of missing the point. It's more just the fact that I don't think he could literally hold her in his arms.
Yeah.
That was the problem. His back was so bad that, jokes aside in terms of throwing her out of a window and stuff, is that when she did land in his arms, I think the whole point was like he literally couldn't support her weight in his arms, which seems inconceivable. There we go. For someone of that size and of that, apparent strength, but his back was in such a state that he literally couldn't carry Robin Wright, who couldn't have weighed much more than a few pounds in 1987. But yeah, it was what it was, I suppose.
Speaking of inconceivable, pulling 3 people up a rope without your legs.
Yeah, but it's Andre the Giant. It's Andre the Giant. I'm willing to find it.
Giant. But my God, that as the camera moves up, that guy is straight. Like, he's straight arming.
He's just going for it.
Yeah. And
I love the fact that after not saying inconceivable for like an hour, we've said it like 17 times since. Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus wept. So that's it for facts.
Sorry, I was just picturing that rope scene. That is me for facts, but I was picturing that rope scene then, and I said Vicini's face did my head in. Can you imagine Andre the Giant? Because he is strapped to his face.
Oh, like face to face, yeah. They really are in each other's grill in that scene. Kind of been fun.
That would have angered the fuck out of me. Sorry, yeah, I'm done with facts. I'm good.
Oh, no, that's fine. Facts. Legacy is a bit of a weird one with this film because when I think of the legacy of this film, obviously there haven't been any sequels, and I can't even fathom a remake. I mean, literally, other than there were some lines with Prince Humperdinck where I really was picturing Matt Berry, you know, with his voice.
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine Matt Berry delivering some of those lines, like, you know, unless I'm wrong, and I could hear Matt Berry delivering those lines. But outside of that,
especially as Matt Berry is Toast from Toast of Love.
Yeah. Really, really swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
But I was like, realistically, I was like, I don't want a sequel. I don't want a remake. And the only thing I can think in terms of like something close to this is probably Shrek. That is like tonally the closest thing to this. But that film goes for more like overt jokes, and the satire is a little bit more on the nose than this is. As I said, this is never making fun of the genre. It's just kind of turning it up to 11. It's still a satire for sure, but it's not in the same way as Shrek. But again, in terms of something that takes the fantasy genre and takes it in a different direction, the only thing I could really think of in terms of something that was almost certainly inspired by The Princess Bride is Shrek. So I'm not sure if you've got anything else to go with there, but in terms of legacy, the only other major legacy is Just This Place is like one of the ultimate cult movies, a film which fundamentally did fine. I mean, you know, usually when you think of cult movies, you think of films which really didn't do well or they were a tiny budget. This is by a famous director with stars, a decent budget, which did decent numbers at the box office. But I think the fact that it's gone on to become so beloved has made it a cult movie. You know, it's lived on way beyond its, you know, sell-by date to become something quite special to a lot of people, you know?
So for me, in regards to legacy, you obviously had in 2020 the Princess Bride read-through that they did. They all got together and did the reunion. So where a bunch of them got together and reread. Eric Idle was the impressive clergyman on that one. Whoopi Goldberg came as the ancient Boer. Mm-hmm. Rob Reiner as the grandfather. Josh Gad as Fezzik. You know, and a bunch of people, and who I think Carrie Elwes was in there as well, and maybe Robin Wright came back. And the only other thing then is the framing sequence was used for Deadpool 2 when they did it kid friendly. Like Deadpool, Deadpool was the grandfather, and Fred Savage and Red. So because they made Once Upon a Deadpool, didn't they? Where they took Deadpool 2 and made it kid friendly for 12s to watch it. Yeah,
I totally forgot about that.
So in regards to legacy, that's it for that kind of.
Yeah, and I guess is it the only film which has such a like almost kind of it's like a literary inception. So the book, it's a book that was subsequently the book in the movie based on the book that was in the book. I mean, is that right? It's absolutely insane. It's so inception-y, and there's nothing else like it because he's reading the book which is based on a real book, but that person is reading the book in the book based on the film. Oh my god, I feel like I'm going cockeyed just trying to think about it. I literally I've read that because I was writing that down as I was watching the film, and as Bethan was literally explaining it to me, and as I'm reading it back I'm like, I'm not sure if that's right at all, but you get what I mean.
It's so self-aware that it's a book.
It's so sorry
I keep losing you. I think we're back.
No, I'm back now. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. It's so self-aware as a book. Like it's aware it's a book inside a book, and I don't know. I mean, unless Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to break you out of this, I'm not too sure about what's going on.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely bananas. Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I mean that's pretty much it for legacy. So, in terms of soundtrack. I mean, we've already mentioned this. I mean, the score is on the nose, a borderline cheesy, but like everything else in this film, it inexplicably works. It's absolutely bizarre. The only thing which doesn't work for me, but obviously did for you, is Storybook Love by Mark Knopfler and Willie DeVille.
So much so I downloaded it to my phone.
Did you really?
Yes.
Well, this is the complete opposite of next week's conversation, because next week we're doing and spoiler, we've already said what we're doing next week, because we mentioned on the last podcast, we're doing The Running Man. And to say that the main theme to that has been in my head and on my playlist all week would be an understatement.
No,
this is the complete opposite. This did not work for me. As I said, when I was listening to it, I was like, this feels like something South Park would do. It just felt so cheesy, but not in a fun way. I don't know. I really didn't like it.
To me, it felt like old school Peter Gabriel slow songs, like Salisbury and things like that. And I kind of enjoyed it. I really did.
I don't know, for one reason or another. You know, you think of the films, you know, obviously I mentioned The Running Man, which we'll do next week, but it's like The Karate Kid, or the one that really stood out for me in terms of like a hidden classic was Monster Squad, which had that great theme tune, like right in the middle of the film when they were, getting all the kids together and stuff. But this one, it's almost like they know it, because the end credits start, and it doesn't start with this. It actually starts with, again, the kind of quite fantastical, old-fashioned score, and then sneaks this in afterwards. It's almost like they knew it was shit.
I wondered then if that was part of the song, and when I downloaded it, it wasn't, but I kept the song. Because it starts off with that, and then, as you say, it just goes straight, there's no cut, it just goes straight into the song. So you think that's the intro.
Yeah, no, it's bad stuff. It's bad stuff. So let's move on from soundtrack to video games. It's a bit of a strange one, because there's only ever been, I mean, there was a Princess Bride 2008 video game, and it was a minigame collection, and it actually did have much of the original cast, but I never played it. I think it was largely for phone and Macs and stuff, but I had a look at the reviews. It was supposed to be terrible. So realistically, we're talking more about, like, if you were going to make a video game based on The Princess Bride, what would you go for? And in terms of, when I think of this film, the most important thing to me is getting the dialogue right. And when we say, like, making a video game based on this film, we're not necessarily saying it has to be a beat for beat remake. It could be a direct sequel. You could be getting the cast back. But immediately what I thought of was Tim Schafer and Double Fine. And I'm thinking, like, if you could get somewhere between the kind of, like, the gameplay of Psychonauts, like the platforming of Psychonauts, and the kind of action gameplay of Brutal Legends, but retain that really strong writing and that self-awareness, I feel like that would be the perfect balance. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of game it would be, other than there might be some platforming and some action. But rather than think, all right, there's a template for a game, I'm just like, no, I want Tim Schafer and Double Fine to make it. It just feels like they would be the perfect place to make a Princess Bride sequel, say, for instance. If they could get some, like you said, with the cast reading, if they could get some of the original cast back, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm lost with this. I am completely lost. The only thing I can think of, especially when you turned around to me just now, when you face-to-face to me and said...
Yeah, like the whole podcast, I've just been looking at the wall. I won't look at any badmouth Karate Kid again. Fuck this guy. Jesus Christ.
When you said about...
And he likes North, son of a bitch. I will not look you in the eyes anymore.
I will caveat, I was taking the piss. North sucks, and I said that on recording. So... But Karate Kid is awful. I don't know what I was going to say. So you want about the narrative side and things like that. And the only thing I can think of is make it like the Oregon Trail, where it's all text-based.
So you're going for like an old BBC computer text-based adventure set in the Princess Bride universe. Well, the award for most left field fucking choice of all time goes to you, sir. Unbelievable.
So, as you're traveling to the fire swamp, was it Wesley died of dysentery or whatever they died of?
Yeah. It's not quite as exciting. It's kind of like, I'm not sure if you ever played it, but I had a Premier Manager on the Mega Drive in like 1992. And of course, it just didn't have you think of like, what is it? It's called Football Manager now, but it's called Premier. Was it Premier Manager? What the hell it was?
Was it Championship Manager?
Championship Manager, that's what it used to be called. But of course, this is on the Mega Drive 16-bit computer, so it was so much more simple. But I'd be playing with Liverpool back in the early 90s, and then at the end of the second season, they'd be like, John Barnes has retired to go and work on a farm. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why is John Barnes retired to go work on a farm? Is he not going to work in the boot, at least in the back room, something? No, he's too busy on his farm. Jesus Christ. But no, I quite like the idea of Wesley getting dysentery on the way to the
fire swamp or whatever. Yeah, the
fire swamp. Yeah. Okay, well, I think you win this week, sir. Let's go with the Oregon Trail version.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that's it for the movie. I mean, as usual at this point, it's review. Would you encourage others to watch it? I mean, for me, in case it's not perfectly obvious already, it's a 5-star film. And yes, I would shout it from the rooftops because I honestly think this is a film potentially for everyone. It's just so charming, so likable. And as I said earlier, I'm not saying it's the best film of all time, but it is in that list of perfect films in terms of just totally achieving what it set out to do. All these individual parts, they shouldn't work, but everything does. The casting works, the writing works, the setting works, the dodgy tone works, everything works, except for the main theme, which is dog shit, but whatever. But other than that horrendous main theme, this is a borderline perfect movie. And of course, I think everyone should go watch it. And I think it's one of these films that it'll just keep picking up more and more fans because outside of the 80s set bedroom scene, which most people are like, hey, look, it's Fred Savage in Columbo. That's nice. I think everyone's just like, it's just timeless. It's going to feel the same in 20 years as it does now. So yeah, absolutely. Encourage everyone to go see it. Perfect 5-star film. Including
the fantastic song at the end. And I will caveat that saying, all right, maybe not fantastic. I liked it.
Fair enough.
It is. I smiled watching this film. I enjoyed watching it. I will watch it again. It's a 5-star film for me as well, and I would encourage others to watch it. And it's one of those. Yep. It's one of those nice ones where you're not encouraging people who are fans of this genre
what genre?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a bit of everything.
It's just, watch this film. It is a good film.
Well, it's like I said, it was like if I was talking, like one of my friends is up from Manchester, and he's brought his whole family, say, like, his wife's there, his kids there, and it's one of those films I'm like, yeah, all watch it. It's like you watch it, your wife watch it, get your kids to watch it, and when you get at home, get your dad to watch it. Shout out to my friend's dad, Juan, because he actually listens to the podcast as well. But if he hasn't seen it, you watch it, granddad watch it, grandkids watch it, and it just works for everyone. And as I said, that magic trick that it pulls off, where it's not just like, oh wait, the bit for the adults is coming now. The whole film is for the adults, and the whole film is for the kids. And I don't know what kind of alchemy they use to pull that off, because I don't think any other film pulls it off as successfully as The Princess Bride. So yeah, absolute masterpiece for sure.
Yep.
So that's it, I suppose. So the only thing left is we
already know what's going on for next week.
Yeah, we already know what's coming next week. In case you didn't listen last week, it's The Running Man. So yeah, we're doing The Running Man next week. That's fine.
I am throwing in a little section I like to call vindication, because we had a message off a listener, right?
Okay. Dan. This is coming as a surprise. I don't like the sound of this. I don't like the look on his face, and I don't like the tone he's taking. For some reason, I think this is going to fly. It's going to be bad for me, for sure.
So one of our listeners, Dan, who always messages and likes to listen and throw things in now and then, has come up with a garbage pail game by Naughty Dog is the game I never knew I wanted.
Oh, for God's sake. Naughty Dog making a Garbage Pail Kids video game, yeah? This is... It's the game. Yeah, that just sounds like the worst thing I've ever heard.
It's Jesus Christ. It's vindication.
It's not vindication at all. We're not doing a Garbage Pail Kids podcast. Forget about it.
It's vindication.
I feel like...
I love the fact that we're arguing about this.
I feel like, right, we should have at least 3 vetoes, maybe a year. We'll say 3 vetoes a year, where you're just like... One of us says, oh, we should do that, and the other one can say, go fuck yourself. And I would like to use one of those vetoes to say, go fuck yourself when it comes to Garbage Pail Kids. There's no joy in rewatching that. Just leave it where it is, burning in hell, presumably.
That's absolutely fine. And I'm glad you said 3 vetoes, because I will use my 3 vetoes next year on shit. And then when you can't use any more vetoes, I'm bringing in the garbage.
You're gonna just keep naming terrible films, and then 6 months from now, I forgot about the Garbage Pail Kids, and you've snuck it back into the 2022 run. Son of a bitch, you're very sneaky. But honestly, Garbage Pail Kids aside, thank you very much for listening as always. I do hope you'll join us next week for The Running Man, which is a very different film, but should be fun. I mean, we both have Schwarzenegger. I mean, it's a quintessential 80s film, isn't it? Yep. But yeah, thanks for listening, and join us next week. Cheers. Bye.
Inconceivable.
Son of a bitch. Oh, yeah, and before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s, or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review. And leave us some 5-star ratings as well. But make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1 star, 5 star. If it's not going to be 5 star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5-star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
There you go!